Welcome to the English version of our radio program Para Ser Legal. Today, I'm going to cover 3 topics about your green card interview that everyone wants to know. 9 things to do at your interview. 9 things not to do at your interview.
Calificas para ser legal, quieres saber, solo llama al abogado Andrés Mejer.
So number 1 is a background search. As I indicated before, if you have an attorney, you have to be 100% honest about your past. If you're not, look, an attorney can't accurately determine your possibility of success if you're lying to him or her. That is why we do a full background search for every client that includes FBI records, Motor Vehicle Commission records, and FOIAs to all 7 immigration agencies. I want to know what the government knows about you. Look, if you're charged with a DUI, you're convicted of a DUI, that may not come out in an FBI search, but it will come in New Jersey. It will come out in a motor vehicle search because it's a traffic violation in New Jersey. It's really important that you know your entries and your exits, your arrests. Information like that can make the difference between approval or denial. So 1 is a background search. 2 is prepare. This means you need to review the application before you show up at the interview. You need to review any supporting documents that you submit to USCIS. If you're applying for a green card because of a marriage to a U.S. citizen or green card holder, make sure you can both answer commonly asked questions like, who sleeps on what side of the bed, who got up first, who showers, do they floss, basic, when did you last go out to dinner, what did you do last night, how did you get here, basic things like that you should be able to answer. Now, attending the interview. Number 3, get there early. I recommend 30 minutes early to your interview. Now, last Thursday, I showed up. I had 3 interviews in Mount Laurel one day, and one of my clients showed up an hour and a half early. Now, I was there because I was with another attorney. I was with another client, but an hour and a half is a little too much. 30 minutes is fine. More than you need, because you never know about traffic, and you never know how hard it will be to find a parking spot. 4, dress to impress. I recommend you wear your Sunday best like you're going to go to church, or what you'd wear to a job interview. 5, don't guess. Make sure you understand every question that is asked before answering it. If you aren't sure, ask the officer to repeat the question or to rephrase it. 6, answer only the question asked. For example, if the officer asks you, what time is it? You look at your watch and you say, oh, gee, it's 6:46 p.m. You don't just go on and say, well, it's a beautiful day outside. Wow, 6:46 brings me back memories. I remember when I had... Again, he just asked you one question. Stop talking. Wait for the next question. 7, honesty really is the best policy. Look, I tell my clients, it is hard work to lie. You have to remember how you answered a particular question each and every time, even though they asked you more than once. If you're honest, you don't need to remember it. You're just being honest. Remember, USCIS shares information with other government entities. So if you entered the U.S. illegally, they probably know. If you came in more than once, they probably know. If you're arrested for a crime, they probably know. Or maybe you answered a visa application differently than the way you're answering now. Let's say you filed for a tourist visa, you entered the U.S., and now your spouse is filing for you. Information that you filed on that application is fair game. Like if you said you were married when you actually weren't, and now at the interview you say, this is your first marriage, you're going to have a problem. Now, number 8, make eye contact with the officer. Look, I know in some cultures this may seem disrespectful, but in the U.S., those who don't make eye contact are more likely to be considered dishonest or untrustworthy. So just make eye contact. 9, know your dates and names. If you're applying for a marriage application, know when you met, when did you get engaged, when you got married, your spouse's birthday. Listen, if you know this stuff, it makes you a good husband or wife. Forgetting has consequences, but forgetting at the interview might make it seem like you're not really into him or her. Maybe the relationship is not real. You should also know the names of your spouse's siblings and parents. Now, they might even ask you what you did last weekend. So be sure you both know basic information about each other. Does my wife have siblings? What do they do? Where do they live? What are their ages? What about parents? Are they alive? Are they not? Where do they live? Again, basic information that if you're together with somebody for any length of time, you're gonna know. Now, 9 things not to do at an interview. Don't miss the appointment. I know that should be an obvious one. You can't get approved if you don't show up. Matter of fact, if you don't show up, you could be denied. And today, denial means put in removal proceedings. So don't miss your appointment. Second, don't be late. If you show up late, you may miss, like Mount Laurel, they're very structured. So they'll try to accommodate you, but they may not be able to. You may be waiting there for hours, and then they may notice you to come back a different day. 3, don't bring children unless they are from the marriage and it's really necessary. Look, I've had applications granted just because of the children. But remember, you could be sitting there for hours. If they're young kids, they may not want to sit still for long. And it'll just stress you out more. So think twice before you bring your kids. 4, don't give information you aren't asked. 5, if you don't know the answer to the question, don't guess. Tell them you don't know. If they separate you, which sometimes happens, and you and your spouse give different answers, this is going to be worse for you than if you just say you don't know. Don't give the officer what you think he or she wants. Number 6, don't ramble on. Keep your answers short and concise. If they ask you a question, you can answer yes or no. Do so and stop. 7, don't give USCIS your original documents. You might not get those back. If they ask to see the original, give it to them. Actually, you should bring a copy with you. But get your originals back before you go. 8, don't argue with the officer. It's not going to be respectful unless they're overly confrontational. And if that's the case, you ask for a supervisor. Better yet, have your attorney do that. 9, don't take how they talk to you or act personally. Some people feel like if the officer doesn't smile or ask them how they are, they've already decided to deny them. The officer has many things that they're doing for their job, and how they act may have nothing to do with you. People have bad days. Now, it may be you, but you can't change them. Reacting negatively just because they're not friendly won't help your case. Be professional, be polite, even when they're not. Now, since we have some additional time, let me tell you about 2 interviews that I had just last Thursday in Mount Laurel. So last Thursday, I had 3 interviews. The first one was a family-based petition. Legitimate marriage, been together for 10 years, married for 10 years. She's Jamaican national. He's African American. It's both their second marriages for both of them. They have no children in common. It was as clear a petition as you can get. The marriage was legitimate. There was a lot of proofs. There was lots of information. She entered illegally, but because someone applied for her before 2001, her ex-husband, she qualified for the Life Act, I-245I, which means they would have waived her illegal entry. But they asked her, how many times did you come to the United States? She said 1. Said, well, then they asked, how many attempts? Well, she said twice. Now, I asked her the same question. She didn't share that with me. They asked more. Well, what do you mean? Well, I entered in 1992, and since then I stayed. But I did try before then. Where, can you tell me about it? She said, I honestly don't remember. I think it was around Florida when I tried to enter. And I don't remember what happened. It was 40 years ago. Now, if she's from Jamaica, chances are she came by plane. If they send her back, chances are they sent her by plane. That means she might have gotten deported. Now, we did a background search, and that did not come up in my search. I even requested documents from immigration, and I found no evidence of that. So I asked the officer, hey, by the way, did you find any documentation about that? Because I did a FOIA and I found 0. They could not make a decision, and my client had not been completely honest with me. Now, will she be approved? I don't know. It all depends. Look, even if she had an order of deportation, we can fix it. It just makes it more expensive and more complicated, and we would have done it differently. That's why it's really important to be honest with your attorney. They can't give you the right advice, and they can't implement the right plan if they don't have the right information. elderly couple, husband and wife. He's 85 years old, she's 74. They're both from Colombia. They both had their green card over 15 years. Their son is a U.S. citizen, applied for them. And they've been here, like I said, over 15 years. Now, husband is deaf in his left ear. No, I'm sorry, deaf in his right ear and has a hearing aid in his left ear. Because of their age and the length of the time that they've had their green card, they could do the interview for the citizenship in their own language, in this case, Spanish. And I was really worried because I know that in Mount Laurel, they use the language line. And my client's hard of hearing. And he's also 85 years old. So we go to the interview, we go with the officer, and the officer was very patient, was very considerate, explained the questions more than once, and the husband passed. It's like, hallelujah. I thought this one would be difficult. Now, understand, when I mean difficult, it's not because of their circumstances. They had no stays out of the U.S. more than 6 months. They had no criminal record whatsoever. They didn't know back taxes. They didn't know child support. They didn't have to speak the language, and they've been studying the material so they could answer the questions even though it was in Spanish. This was as clean-cut a case as you can find. The only difficulty is, one, the language barrier, and number two, age and hearing aids. And I was really worried about that because speakerphones suck. There's no two ways about it. It's not always easy to understand, and the translator sometimes has a thick accent, or sometimes, well, listen, I speak Spanish, so if someone speaks from Mexico, a Spanish speaker from Mexico, or Argentina, or Chile, or Uruguay, they're all a little bit different, but they're understandable. But sometimes the slang is different, and it can be a problem in some circumstances. So I was really worried. But with the husband, it went great. No, the problem was with the wife. She's not hard of hearing. She's 9 years younger. Here's the problem. We went in. She's sitting like we're right in front of me. And the phone for that the officer uses is 6 feet away. I said, officer, can you move the phone over? She said, I can't. Unfortunately, it doesn't go anywhere. I said, well, listen, I don't know about you, but I'm a little concerned that she's not going to hear the translator. Translator's not going to hear her. She said, you know what, let's give it a try. And we did. And it just wasn't working. I said, officer, that's the second time he only translated half of what she said. How do I know this? Because I'm bilingual. I speak Spanish. If I wasn't, I'd have a problem. But I understood what was being said, what she said, and I understood that he wasn't translating it all. So she said, well, you know what, counselor, I'm going to have to reschedule for another day. So hold on a second. We're here now. They're traveling outside the country to attend a wedding. And they have an appointment to get their passports tomorrow. Please, let's try and do this today. She said, honestly, I don't see how I can. So she escorted us out. I asked to speak to an officer. I explained the situation to the officer. Officer said, hold on and see what I could do. The officer then came back. The supervisor brought the officer back. And the officer said, you know what? She spoke to IT, and they're going to give her a longer cord. Wait a couple of minutes. Fantastic. We did. 10 minutes go by. She brings us back in. We call the translator. There's no translators available. Like, you got to be kidding me. So listen, what can we do? She's like, I don't know. I have no choice but to give you, to notice you for another date. So I went out. I asked to speak to the supervisor again. I said, listen, here's the situation. How can we solve this? And here's what he did. He said, you know what? Let's find an officer that speaks Spanish. I'm like, fantastic. That's what I had in mind. But I wanted the idea to come from him, not from me. And he came to it on his own without me suggesting it, which was fantastic. So they put us in front of a officer who immigrated from Argentina. Her Spanish was flawless. It went super fast. And all of a sudden, my client was much more animated, speaking my language, answering the questions, and things went great, and she got approved. And they are, I believe on Friday or Saturday, they got their passports. They are both now U.S. citizens. Now this was as clean-cut as a petition as you could find. If you had asked me, do these people need an attorney to go with them? I would have said no. The only reason to do it was because the son was nervous because of their age. They didn't know how they would react. He wanted them to be comfortable. And I went there just for their comfort. I can't remember the last time I had to ask for a supervisor twice on the same case. It happened. We made it work, but I would never have known. Again, it's why I say, did they need an attorney? No, they didn't. But it's a good thing they had one, because otherwise they would not have been approved. And certainly not in the time that they did. So thank you for tuning in. I'm Andres Mejer. If you have any questions, put them down in the comments below. Please subscribe to a channel so that you can be kept up to date on the latest happenings in immigration. Until next time, I'm Andres Mejer. Have a good day.